said, we are really happy to have you here this evening, talking about social emotional learning and more specifically about the social emotional and ethical learning program we have in place. Here with me today are my dear friends and colleagues from Verita International School, Marius, Luca, and Andreea Alexandrescu. I am Lila Vasilescu, and we, for many years, been part of the social emotional learning team here at Verita, teaching social emotional learning in classes with most of our kids. And as we have developed our own program and an own understanding of how this works in an educational setting, we have moved further into more of teacher training, so that this curriculum that we are so eager to present to you today is something that we are integrating in the everyday teaching of your kids here at Verita. One thing that's important to be mentioned for those of you who have younger kids, so I'm talking below 4 years old, this program we are using in Verita starts from 5 years onwards. And we will get a bit into explaining the whole concept as we move further. All right, so because we have limited time, unfortunately, and as I said, we are quite passionate about this subject. So our attempt today is to start this dialogue and to offer more details about it in general. But we are actually very excited to have maybe a follow-up where we go more into depth. As this session today will cover maybe half of the things we want to offer. We'll see as we move along. Some administrative details. We would welcome questions, and I think it's easier to access it through the Q&A part. So we, either of us can see and reply to them, either in writing or just addressing it verbally. So feel free at any given moment to ask any questions you might have about what we are presenting. All right, but we're all talking about how we feel and about social emotional learning. We're all, just getting here together after a full day, maybe at work, or everybody is just coming together from any places that you've been, maybe just picked up kids from school and so on and so forth, or just to do a short check-in, which is something that we also do with the kids here in school. And the check-in today would be if you could find a weather pattern that matched how you're feeling right now. And you can just even take a moment, just to take a deep breath or just to pause and see how you're feeling in this moment. What would that weather pattern be? Yeah, so you can choose from sunny, rainy, cloudy, and we would be happy to hear your responses in the chat if you want to share them with us. Just how are you feeling right now? If you were a weather pattern, what would that pattern be? Marius and Andrea, you guys can start off also and share what's your weather pattern today. Oh, you just shared. Okay, Marius. Windy. Okay. Simona, thank you. Cloudy. Oh, yeah, it's actually even cloudy outside. Cloudy. Yes. This is always a good opportunity for us when we do all sorts of check-ins with the kids based on age levels. Of course, they're different. To once notice, how we're feeling, and be open to share this with the ones around us. And then also noticing that we're different. And while for some of us it's sunny, it can also be, like Violeta says, cold in the same time, right? So we are different in so many ways, which makes us unique. Sunny, beautiful rainy day. And a bit stormy, yes. Stormy days, stormy times. But the good news is that we do have tools and we do have practices we can use to make us feel better, even on cloudy or rainy days. Not to say that those are not nice anyways. So, all right. So let's start with the ground foundation of why this program in general is important and why social emotional learning is important when we talk about the learning process. And we have Andreea, who's our guru on the co-regulation process. So I'll leave it to you, Andreea.
Thank you, Lila. Hello, everyone. I'm no guru, but I'm, as Lila said earlier, pretty passionate about this stuff. So just as we have different moods when we do a check-in with ourselves and we see how we feel, the same way our kids have their own emotional states. And the thing is that most of the time, especially with younger children, or the younger they are, the more they borrow from us these sort of moods and emotional states. So it's very important how we feel with ourselves as adults, both parents and teachers, when we relate to children, our own or the children we interact with in school. And I was saying that the younger the children, the more they are connected with us, because when children are born, human children at least, they are very, very helpless at birth in comparison with other mammals. And that's why they need a lot of care and support from us grown-ups. And the way we develop in a pair, in a sense, or they develop together with us, this is why we call this process co-regulation, because they don't regulate themselves yet when they're young. We are the ones who show them, who model to them how it feels to be calm, how it feels to be safe, and how it feels to be alert and present when we need that. So we kind of make this interbrain, as one of our favorite authors calls it, this dyad between ourselves as the primary caregiver, sometimes the mother, sometimes another member of the family, with the child that we're raising. And through this interbrain, the child is helped to feel safe and secure. And also, as I said earlier, focused and alert when they need to be, or the way we call it, down-regulated or up-regulated. And when the child comes to school, then the school's role through the teacher is to continue creating this safe and supportive environment. This time for learning not only life skills, but also academic skills, right? And also we try at school to offer as many opportunities as we can for the children to explore different ways of creating meaning in the activities that they're involved in. So although this self-regulation process looks like something the child develops on their own, it's actually together with significant adults in their lives that it gets to form and to be stable and deep. So both the family and the school contribute to this learning and practicing of self-regulation, which is, in a sense, the cornerstone of any social emotional learning program and of the social emotional learning in general. Yeah, and what is self-regulation? It's this ability to manage emotions, thoughts, sensations sometimes, but also the way we manifest these outside through our actions and behaviors. So in this sense, we kept using a previous program for younger children, especially the children in reception that would be 3.5 years old and above, up to 5, because it's in a sense easier to work through playful supports. And in second step, we have puppets and we have beautifully colored and big posters. The faces and the activities, the actions there are depicted very clearly, and they have an impact on younger children. And below reception, it's a bit difficult to teach children cognitive things, like to teach them information about emotions or about how they feel. It's mostly the interaction with the grown-up, in this case, in our school, the teacher, and at home, the primary caregiver. So that's why up to reception, up to 3 years old, we don't use a specific program as much as we train the teachers to be able to help co-regulate the children, right? And after the reception years, as Lila mentioned earlier, starting 5.5, we change the program for a new one. These are the units that were present in second step, and they are somehow designed to be used by the class teacher because they are cut in short chunks, 15-minute chunks, so they can be offered every day, and also through reinforcing activities, very sometimes short brain breaks and other activities that are somehow spread throughout the week. And you can have some idea about what they contain, like taking a glance through these 5 units. So I will ask Lila or Marius, who is going to present the next program, actually the most new one, the newest one. Thank you, Marius.
Andreea. What we start with the in the early years, we continue through this wonderful curricula called social, emotional, and ethical learning. So the skills of self-regulation, awareness, building compassion, they need to be fostered. Although they are incumbent in us, we are born with these possibilities. We need to develop them further. And how do we do this? We do this by a combination of knowledge and research. So this curricula incorporates the best of what developmental research offers, as well as what traditions along hundreds and thousands of years distilled as critical insight, as key information in how humans become more knowledgeable, more kind, more empathetic, more respectful, more able to make good choices. So this curricula covers from early elementary to middle school, all years, and is currently present in teachings from our teachers all throughout the years. It incorporates, as I said, knowledge from both academia, so experts like Daniel Goleman, who I'm sure you're familiar with from emotional intelligence, but also a background supported by the Dalai Lama. The curricula is strictly secular, so it doesn't pertain to any religion. It transcends all religion, and it incorporates the best of the two worlds, and it makes it available in easy language, easy practices to be done by both children and adults throughout the age groups. So. All right, what we have next. So the global launch of this program happened in New Delhi in 2019, and all throughout these 3 years, it boomed, like it spread all throughout the world. Currently, there are around 250 plus trainees to become facilitators, and these facilitators can in turn allow other people to join this program, to take in the information, to take in the practices, and take them further to schools in public and private sector. So we've the 3 of us finished the already the facilitators course, and many more people are currently enrolled from Verita, but also from all throughout the world in the current facilitators program. They will become facilitators, they will be able to train other teachers, but they will be able to really go in depth with the practices that some of them will be presented in this webinar. All right, a few elements that could be mentioned about this program. It's based on compassion and care. It has a strong ethical engagement, so it enables, empowers students and teachers to take action, but in a wise way. It develops attention, because attention training is a key component of mind's development. It's focused on personal practices that are easy to adopt in class, but it's also resiliency and trauma informed. So this means that all the practices are meant to keep people safe, not trigger them in any way. And also, it's something that we didn't encounter until this curricula. It has a strong emphasis on system thinking and equity focus, like taking into consideration how things impact other things in a wider context. So we're not focusing only on what happens in the class or what happens in our community, but also we study the relationships between school and its environment and how it impacts us. So it's a lot of pieces coming in together from many angles to really build a whole 360-degree training of the mind and heart. And now I will let Lila do one of these short practices that I've mentioned that are easily available and accessible.
Yes, Marius, thank you. Because, information is good and is useful, but a lot of things, especially in social emotional learning, are things we want to model to our kids, and it's more a sense of the way we are in their presence. And at times, because it's difficult for us as well, whether teachers or parents, we need strategies so that we model the right things, right? So one of the help now strategies we have in this program, a sip of water. So if you are in close vicinity to taking a bottle of water next to you, or if you can just take a few seconds and go grab a cup of water, it would be helpful so that we actually have this experience. I also have my cup here. So these help now strategies are very simple. They take 1 minute long. They sound really, really childish in a sense, like, okay, taking a sip of water, I do that every single day, multiple times, but the invitation this time is different. So the invitation is to slow down a bit. And as you take a sip of water, to really feel it, to really have the sensory experience of what it is like to take a sip of water, and to notice, the temperature, to notice how it goes down from your mouth to your throat. So just paying attention more than normally to this whole experience. And I would invite you to do so if you can in this moment. And as we experience this, what do you feel right now in your body? Do you notice any sensations? And if so, are these sensations pleasant? Are they unpleasant? Or are they neutral? And what we're doing, like little detectives, just as we encourage the kids, is to pay attention to these sensations. And if by any chance we notice any unpleasant sensations in the body, we try to put our attention back and to rescan our bodies and focus more on a place in our body that feels better, or at least that feels neutral. So I would invite you to do that if you can. And if you want to share in the chat, if there was something that you felt that maybe it was different than when you normally would take a sip of water, or how the experience might have felt for you this time. A lot of these help now strategies focus on all of our senses, which we are backed up by neuroscience here of how this works and why, especially in a more heated moment, it's helpful to put our attention on what's present right now. And the sensations in our bodies are something that help us guide us back in the present moment. So this was one of the 9 strategies. We'll try to go through others as we move along. Roxana, thank you for sharing. First, unpleasant, and at the end, ease and relaxation. Yes, I have to say it was unpleasant for me as well, as I have a sore throat. But in the same time, I was really thirsty. And so it was a combination that eventually led me to feel better. Thank you, Marius. Refreshing. All right. Let's see. One second, as I can't seem to move the slides. All right. So going a bit also into more in depth of how this curriculum works. We are looking at 3 dimensions and 3 domains of the C-Learning program. And this is extremely relevant because then each chapter is based on these 9 components. So we have the personal component, we have the social and the systems, and these core dimensions of awareness, compassion, and engagement. And they are combined in this model where we have this 9 components together, right? So for example, if we take the personal domain with the awareness dimension, we have attention and self-awareness. Or if we have compassion on a personal level, we have self-compassion. So it is built up extremely beautiful. And why we've chosen it was because we had combined many other curricula before that were not as comprehensive, as complex as this one is. And it offers a lot of resources for the teachers and the parents to begin with, because before we get to our kids in class using these tools, it's very important that we are, as I mentioned already, authentic in front of them doing all of these practices. So this is for you to get an idea of some of the topics we're going to go through. Now, I'm just going to mention this one, but we are not going to go through all of them, although we would have loved to, because having the real experience of all of these strategies are extremely powerful, more than just talking about them. So this is another Help Now strategies we're using in class, which is based on sounds. And this is an invitation to just identify 3 sounds inside the room that you are. And then identifying 3 sounds that come from outside the room. And many times, although, as I said, it might seem like a very, childish experience, if you keep doing that, maybe not every day, but every week, you will notice different sounds, and you will have maybe surprising answers, like we have with some of the kids who start hearing, the tick-tack of a clock inside the classroom, or the sounds within their bodies, their stomach growling, or even their heart beating. And these are really powerful strategies to use with the kids, but not only. And again, the attention is on the pleasant sensations that we have, and we try to stay just a bit longer with those. Yeah, Andreea.
Yes, Lila, I just wanted to mention that earlier I was saying that the reception children do continue with second step, but as we started to introduce to you these short practices, we want to mention that some of these are very simple, so even reception children will go through them, so they are, slowly familiar with what's gonna come next as they move to year 1. And as Lila said, they are very, very simple and easy to do, and that's why we kind of encourage everyone, parents and teachers, to do them first before we introduce them to the children. That's why we are presenting this to you now in the second semester of this year, because we tried to start this program 2 years ago, but then the pandemic started and it was more difficult to continue with it in an online format. So we just kept with some pre-recorded lessons, just a few, touching on just a few concepts. And this year, during the first semester, all the teachers took training and they started slowly doing the practices for themselves first, so that when we start to introduce the children to these practices, we as grown-ups kind of have some idea what to expect when the children will come in contact with them. And that's why we invite you as well to practice them as much as you can. In the end of the presentation, we're going to give you some extra information about where you can find the curricula if you're curious or interested to know more.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. And we'll also share by email alongside with the presentation. We have a nice poster with all the strategies, and because we have them at school, print in some of the classes, you can also use them at home. So this is the pedagogical model of C-learning. And as we've mentioned, we start with the knowledge. Yeah, we start with the information because there are many concepts and there are many things that we want to learn about, how the brain works or how we can spend our attention when we are in school, or what happens with all of these emotions that I'm feeling in the body and all of that. So we need that knowledge, that part of the received knowledge. But then it moves onwards to the critical insight. It's those, aha moments that when you start doing these practices for a longer term, and maybe sometimes journaling what it feels like, time in, you will slowly start to have these aha moments of, oh, so this is what happens then. Because the more we investigate, the more we are curious about how this works, the more things will come up for us. So this is always something we encourage, to stay curious in this process, because even these Help Us Now strategies, the way we experience them changes every time we do them. And then the last part, which is the embodied understanding, it's all this knowledge that we've tested many times through aha moments, and then it's just spontaneous and it's transformed us. So it only comes natural that when I'm stressed out, when I'm really upset about something, I know already that in my body, this feels good when I do it. Having a sip of water, or looking around for colors in the room, or listening to sounds, or pushing a wall if I feel like my body is restless. So we kind of already have that toolbox, and we know it comes up, it pops up already, like this is something I want to try out because I know it helps me. And these are the chapters of the C-learning curriculum. And they're progressive in the sense that we start the school year with chapter 1, creating, that safe environment for our kids, that compassionate classroom where they build their own agreements based on how they want to feel in class, what's important to them, and they work together in these classroom agreements. And then we move towards building resilience and getting all of these practices and tools that makes us feel good, and understanding when we don't feel good, why is that happening and what's happening in our brains and in our bodies. And moving onwards to attention and self-awareness, emotions, and then starting with chapter 5 is the part that we've mentioned that was actually important for us to choose C-learning, because it also focuses on ethics and how we learn from each other, and how it's not just being compassionate and learning about how we function, but then how we are in relationships and in the world, and how we contribute to each other's well-being. And it ends with this beautiful capstone project, which is a project that can take multiple weeks where they work together. So we wanted this whole presentation today to be about going through these chapters, but we'll see how far along we get, and then we will continue on another webinar because we think it's relevant that you go through all of these chapters and understand what's going on. All right, Marius.
Although compassion is only present at chapter 6, or so it seems, it permeates the whole of the curricula. And why is this? Why is compassion so important? Why do we emphasize it so much? What do we mean by compassion? These are really valid questions that we don't want necessarily to give an answer to the kids so that they just recite it out of their head. We want them to experience it in as many ways as possible. Now, why is this? Why is compassion so important then? Because it's based on the feeling of safety, ensuring that the children and adults are safe together, are safe in the classroom, are seen and heard and listened to. And I've mentioned the incredible human potential that we all have for the amazing resources we have available by just being alive, and that the fact that they need to be nurtured, and the feeling of safety is paramount in order for those resources to start bubbling up, to start manifesting in the world. So of course we have the neuroscience that backs this up and informs us how critical and how important the feeling of safety is for our growing up, from children to adults. But also there's something else. Compassion is this feeling of safety that manifests in the world. That's why it's so important. It's feeling safe and wanting other people to feel safe and cared for and listened to. So of course we are working with some definitions of compassion, but as you know, we have so many facets of compassion that really we cannot encompass in one sentence. But we all know what it feels to feel safe or not, and what we want others to feel if we care for them. Okay. Well, the practice of resourcing, which is one of the practices in C-learning, is based on just that. Remembering a moment of nurturance, a moment of safety, a moment of caring. And although you are not going at length with this practice today, I just kindly invite you to think of something that is a resource to you, something that brings you a feeling of safety, calm, or maybe gratitude, or maybe joy, whatever brings those feelings on. Relive it as a memory, but also as a bodily experience. Relive it fully. Try to feel it, how it feels like, to bring to mind a moment of maybe safety, joy, happiness, gratitude. It can be something real or imagined. It can be a unicorn, for example. Just the thought of a unicorn, imagine, maybe brings joy to mind. That's a resource. That's a personal resource. We work a lot with this practice in classes, and we invite children and adults to notice sensations, especially the pleasant ones, to enhance them, to allow them to be present, to spend more time and attention with those feelings, in order to really allow it to sink in, you know, below that level of noise that we all have in our minds. Allow it to sink in. Yeah. This is resourcing, and it's a key practice in C-learning that allows children to bring to mind a moment of safety. And building on that, it's a good intro to compassion, to wanting other people to feel the same, to feel happy, joyful, safe, compassionate. Lila.
Thank you, Marius. Yes, resourcing, I have to say that for me personally, amongst all the practices in C-learning through our 1.5 almost year of being in this facilitators course, has been extremely powerful and meaningful, not to mention that we overlapped with this whole COVID pandemic, and these became even more powerful to practice. And just we keep reinforcing that, and we'll keep saying it, that these are short practices. It takes 1 minute even in the middle of the day, to just close your eyes and just connect with your body, connect with how you're feeling, and bringing a resource to mind that you know helps you. So always inviting you to give it a try. So this was kind of like starting off with the first chapter and creating that safe space, as Marius mentioned, and moving towards the second chapter, which is resilience. This is where we go into explaining, sort of, to begin with, what resilience is. And although we all use this word and we know it pretty much, and kids are pretty able even to explain it themselves, just bouncing back and just focusing on our strengths so that we can function in our smaller or larger communities. It's not always something easy to manifest, because we need the safe space, and then we need the tools and the practices to build this part stronger. And this is how the resilient zone looks like in SE. It's what we call the OK zone. So we have this resilient zone that you can see between these two lines, and the reality of our everyday life is that it goes up and down, right? So although we want to have maybe a more linear, or to be, more upper wave than down wave, the reality is that we go through so many emotions, and there's so many things that happen throughout the day, the weeks, the months, the years. And we can start off the day, waking up calm and rested, and then you can get a phone call or read the news recently, and start to become worried, and then maybe having a cup of coffee, and then again that feels nice, but then going to work or staying in traffic. And so this is how the day looks like, and this is where we go through. It's life. Okay, so we are not trying to push this away and to make it like we always want to just be in the OK zone, because we know that's not possible. And we kind of normalize this with the kids as well, understanding that while we have this OK zone, it's really okay to sometimes be bumped out of this OK zone, whether we are in the high zone stuck, where it's those, more powerful emotions, where we have a lot of tension and energy in the body, and we can be, hyper or angry or really, mad with something. Or for some of us, it bumps us out of the OK zone in the low zone, where there's less energy and you feel more isolated. There's this sort of numbness or sadness. So this is pretty okay to be in, whether we're up or down. What we're trying to do is to make this space, this OK zone, larger, so that it encompasses more and more of these emotions. So we are able to contain them. We are able to keep them there, and to use some of the strategies we've mentioned before, so that we can go back to the OK zone. We don't stay for too long in either the high zone or the low zone. We know we can bounce back. And so some of us have a more shallow resilient zone, and even the smaller stresses can bump us out. But some of us have, a larger zone, where we can have more of those emotions and still be in the OK zone. We're different in that way, and we can have more tolerance for some of these stressors or not, and that's okay too. Okay, I think it's important also. So as I mentioned, if there's any questions, please put them in the Q&As, as we're gonna, at the end, just leave more room for questions. But even as we present, if there's anything that's unclear or we can get back to, please feel free to ask us. And I would invite Andreea to present a bit about this perspective shift with C-learning and why it was so relevant. You've also noticed in some of the slides that we have this logo from the Trauma Resource Institute, and the part about being trauma informed was also one of the reasons why we chose this program, because we know nowadays that we cannot ignore this trauma bit. And Andreea, can you present a bit more about this perspective shift, please?
Sure. Thank you, Lila. So this perspective shift is one of the key elements in C-learning, because it shows us how the view of human development changed and it's kind of good and useful to continue changing, because we started with this conventional perspective, saying that, okay, people are bad, people need to be punished. And in a sense, the question here is, what's wrong with you, right? But we then moved towards the trauma-informed view, where we take into account the fact that people are suffering, that people, and all of us had, more or less difficult situations that we've gone through since our childhood, and so did our parents and our grandparents, and we keep perpetuating these traumatic experiences sometimes. And it's really useful to acknowledge this, but again, not get stuck in this either. So we need to move towards this more of a resilience-informed perspective, where, okay, we know that people have suffered, but we also know that people are resilient, that people have strengths that we can use to build on and bounce back. So we know that we have suffered, but we know also that we have the capacity to learn new strategies, new tools, so that they would help us to, remember that we have strong points that we can use, and that will kind of help us on the way to transforming our reality, to ask ourselves, okay, what is right with me? What are my strengths? Or transferring these questions towards, people that we work with or relate with. And this applies both to grown-ups and to children. So we moved basically from what's wrong with you to what happened to you, and to what is right with you. What are your strengths and how can we build on them? And I think this is really, really important in today's world. And this will not apply because we have too short a time to take a break. This webinar was kind of planned to happen over a course of 1.5 or 2 hours. So I'm going to let Marius get a little bit through the attention and self-awareness chapter, so we can finally be able to say a few words about emotions. Marius?
Well, in order to get to attention and self-awareness, let's make that sure that everybody is attentive and aware. And one quick way to refresh attention and awareness is a practice of grounding, which is somewhere in the presentation, but I feel the need to bring it on now. So grounding is basically wherever you are, paying attention to whatever you're doing, okay? So if you're driving and listening to us, please continue to drive and listen to us, but keep your eyes on the road. So just be aware with a fraction of your attention, 10%, 15% of your body, sitting or walking or doing whatever it does, okay? And notice the points of contact of your body with the surrounding objects, be it the sofa, be it the ground you're walking on. Just for a brief moment, be aware of your body and its contact with the surrounding objects. Notice how what does this do with your attention? What does this do with your general well-being? Okay, it's a quick, easy practice that we often do with the kids. It's a practice that I'm mostly using myself whenever I feel the need to rebalance the system, okay? Whether I'm too busy or too self-involved in something, like I wanted to get on with the presentation, but then I noticed that maybe I'm a bit too nervous, okay? So how does it feel just to take a moment, refresh the attention, refresh the well-being of the mind and body, and then carry on. Attention and self-awareness are another key element of building resilience, building compassion. They are a huge chapter in the curricula, and we address it by both stories and practices, by kids discussing with each other, but also going through multiple practices where they can really experience, not just understand, but really experience. It's that embodied understanding that Lila was talking about. How does it feel to really be able to tune into something whenever I want to, okay, to ignore distractions? This is attention. Watching something very carefully, okay, I'm staying with that object, ignoring distractions. Or if I get distracted, I notice this is awareness. Awareness is, oh, I'm distracted right now. Where was I supposed to focus attention? Oh, it's the test I'm working on. It's the project I'm working on. This is where I want my attention to be. So this skill of kids being able to tune in, to focus attention whenever they want to, it takes a lot of time to practice, but it can be done in fun, easy ways. Right? Grounding is one of them. Help now strategies are also meant to work on attention. So we know that brains that fire together wire together. So the whole point of the practices and the reinforcements that we are doing in class with kids is to slowly but surely work on the muscle of attention, ideally throughout the day. So it's not only one class, okay? It's not only 2 classes, 3 classes, it's all throughout the day, okay? Making sure we have an environment where we focus not only on the content of academics, but also training students to really be able to take in information when and how they choose to, not only because we tell them to, okay? So wherever we put our attention, that something grows. This is neuroscience that backs it up. And we know that whatever we do constantly, repeatedly, and we put attention on that things, that our attention becomes even more subtle, even more focused. So we have examples in our own life where whenever we put attention on something repeatedly, we are better able to do that choice. This is a very good practice for students. It's also very fun. The mind jar, we fill a bottle of water with a glitter. We put a lot of stuff in there, and we kind of agitate it, and we tell the students what's going on. What do you see? Nothing. We don't see anything. Well, this is our mind trying to make sense of what is going on, and when all those thoughts and emotions just free range in our mind, but allow them to settle, do some grounding, do some help now strategies, do some other practices. Allow it to settle, and we invite students to watch the mind jar. Oh, they drop. Yes, thoughts and emotions have a way of quieting down once we give them space and time to do so. It's fun. It proves the point, and it can be done also at home. I need to check with my colleagues to just to see how far do we go with the presentation, because we also want to hear from you. Does this make sense? Does this is it something that you think your child will benefit from? What will she benefit from more? Did they already talk about this at home? So yes, we would love to hear from you, because if not, we have so much content, because we've been working with this for so many years now, that we can fill not only this hour, but the whole day and week. And I'm not joking right now. So
yes, Marius, indeed, there's a lot to cover. I would say to open it up also for questions. I think we would just wanted to end a little bit into emotions and to let Andreea go just a bit, 1 more 2 minutes, and then just open it up for anything that might come up related to what we've managed to go through today.
So do you mean to say that it becomes emotional now?
Inevitably, Marius, we cannot, let's be honest.
We just wanted to emphasize the fact that many other programs of social emotional learning, they go straight into emotions. And we used to do that with our zones of regulation. You can see the colors on the left side. And the idea is that this curricula is, in a sense, built more logically, because it shows us that we need to create that safety space that we talked about. And then we need to teach the body to settle. We need to train our attention a little bit. And then it becomes a lot easier to observe emotions, to understand them, and also to learn how to manage them. So for younger children, sometimes we continue with the zones of regulation because they're used to it, and it was a very visual and impactful program. But we can also link it with the new way of looking at the resilient or the okay zone, or the green zone, as we used to call it. And we talk a lot about metaphors like the spark and the forest fire. So because Marius just told us about awareness and attention, if we strengthen that, it's easier to observe an emotion when it's like a difficult or a potentially strong emotion, when it's just a spark, before transforming itself into a forest fire. Yeah, so we can observe frustration and a bit of anger and our signs in the body. That's why in all these practices we connect with the body, and we try to separate or make the distinction between sensations characteristic to stress and sensations characteristic to the state of well-being. And then we can observe, okay, something is happening in my body. This is an emotion that potentially can go towards a forest fire. So what can I do? How can I go back to that green zone or resilient zone or okay zone, or whatever we want to call it? And then we can easily go into emotion families and more of the theoretical side of emotions. But we already have some tools to start learning how to manage those strong or difficult, or we sometimes call them risky emotions. Yeah. So this is, in a sense, more of a logical way of approaching the development of social emotional learning, with all these short strategies that we mentioned, and all this progression from safety to settling the body to attention, emotions. And then it's much easier to recognize that we're all connected, and we can study a bit of systems thinking and interdependence, and realize that we can influence, and we do influence each other so much. And we can actually start influencing each other in good ways, and building strong communities, and all those beautiful things that we want for our children and for ourselves in the end.
Thank you, Andrea, for that. I see we have a question here. Do you have a list of exercises, materials to read to help us implement this better at home too? This is all very good, but a more practical guide for me would be useful to make sure this becomes a more regular part of my routine with my child, as it doesn't necessarily come very natural. Yes, there is to begin with. So we have the whole curriculum, and as we go through it in school, you will be informed. But we also will send by email to those of you who participated the Help Now strategies as a poster that has them all integrated. And we can give this to you. Also, the companion guide, that's something that we would encourage those of you who are really into this, and we would want to kind of be in parallel with what's going on with your child in school. There's an online course from SEE. It's about 4 or 5 hours in total. You don't have to do it all at once, but at the end of it, you get the whole guide of which is called the companion for this program, alongside all the manuals that we've showed. In the meantime, though, these practices we've mentioned now will be sent by email, because indeed it helps to, be hands-on and to be able to have them there and use them where you're at home. And it's actually really helpful for the kids to encounter the same strategies at home and in school. So thank you. And
also there's a letter that the class teacher is sending in the beginning of each chapter, outlining what the chapter will be about, and emphasizing what you as parents can do at home to support your child in learning these concepts, and especially the practices. And as we've mentioned in the beginning, it's a lot about modeling and about co-regulation. So the more you embrace these practices yourself and maybe show your child that you're interested and they help and you are interested to practice them, the more they will also feel that, okay, it's coming from both sides and it's good to do.
If there are any other questions, sorry, Marius.
Until further questions come in, I would like just a short comment on the fact that it doesn't come naturally. Although we have all these resources in us, like compassion, forgiveness, patience, and so on, they don't come naturally. Yes, that's true, because the way we're educated so far, and the way the systems that we are gradually moving in as young adults and as adults, they all teach us something else. They teach us maybe to be competitive, to be the first at whatever we are doing. And I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm saying that it's something that we are all missing. This second part, awareness and compassion. How do we manage ourselves so that we can be the persons that we want to, in order to live a fuller lives ourselves, and also to be more available for other people, be it our children, be it our spouses, or be it our family. So we all need this. This is not something that we are just teaching our kids. This is something that we too as adults need a lot, I would say. The more difficult the times, the more we need resources like awareness, compassion, and understanding of system thinking, and understanding of self-regulation. And how do we do this? Is by applying compassion to ourselves first, okay? Practicing in a gentle way, becoming curious and aware of what's going on, what our kid is doing, but also maybe bringing a curious mind to the practices themselves, finding a way to incorporate them in daily life, and allowing life to then teach us, okay, in a way. Oh, that was a moment of where I lacked attention. Well, that's a moment of attention. That's a moment of awareness. I just realized the fact that I was not paying attention. Yay to myself. So really doing the practices in a gentle way, it takes years. It takes many years to become, able and master of these things. But we are not aiming for mastery. You are more aiming like gradual, incremental change for the better. Okay. So yes, it's not natural, but it can become natural in time.
And I would like to add to what you said, Marius, the fact that these practices are really well designed, because they come from the Trauma Resource Institute, who partnered with the authors of Sea Learning. And even now, for example, every single day they are present online helping the people from Ukraine, where we have a strong team of SE facilitators. And we're happy to say that they are all safe now. They managed to get out of those affected zones, mostly Kharkov and Kiev, and they are continuing to work for their fellow citizens. So they have people online, sometimes tens, sometimes hundreds of people online learning these techniques, because even though they seem so childish and so short, they can be really, really helpful, even in very, very difficult situations like what's happening there right now. So, yeah.
Thank you, Andreea. And being also aware of time, I would just leave it up if there's any questions anybody else would want to ask. The presentation has been recorded, so we will send that along. Also the slides, and as I've said, the poster with the Help Now strategies. It would be really nice to hear your feedback in the following weeks if you're also applying them at home with your kids. And we would want to have a follow-up on this webinar, as we've only touched upon the 3 chapters, and there's more to follow. But yeah, because Marius also mentioned it, this is a process. And as much as also as a mother, I have to say, I want my 7-year-old son to start having those embodied understanding of all of these practices, and when they're really upset, to just know exactly what they have to do and how, with all the modeling and with all of that. There's days when nothing seems to work, and then there's days when you're surprised by how composed they are and how easy they know what strategy to take on. So yes, be gentle with yourselves and with the process. We are doing also the best we can in school, and you have our full support. If there's worries you might have, or just extra resources you would want to use at home, so please reach out to any of us. In our work, not only in school, but we as a team are also part of the Checkin project, which is Compassion in Education Resource Center, where we've translated this whole curriculum into Romanian, and we're offering to the public schools in Romania. There's a lot of effort there, and a lot of resources we're putting in, so that this is not just something talking about interdependence and systems thinking. We want this to be offered also outside of our community and through our children in many of the projects, especially the middle and secondary students. We will try and make these projects more alive for them, where they can share this with others as well through their direct experience.
Actually, Lila, we didn't mention the fact that while in primary, the lessons are taught by the homeroom teachers. In secondary, they just have started to be delivered by the advisory teachers. And in the self-dedicated classes, we do, at least for this year, more project-based work, where we try to apply some of these practices and these concepts in more hands-on.
Yes, indeed.
Activities.
It's true, and that's also because statistically, and in all the accreditations we went through, and with all the experts we've talked around the world, including with Emory, because we are their primary collaborator here in Romania. We have a very strong partnership with them. It needs to be embedded, especially with younger kids in primary, with their homeroom teacher. This is what makes sense. This is where they see this modeling throughout the day, and not just as an add-on and as a subject that comes separately throughout the week. So it's really important that this is something that, although they have the instructional time in their schedule, the reinforcements and the practices are done throughout the day. This is how it works on the long run. So we really trust this process, and it's not just us, it's so many other schools who are doing this in parallel, and we are in collaboration with them and just taking feedback and learning from each other. Thank you so much. I don't want to keep you any longer, so if there aren't any other questions we can respond to on the spot right now, we would welcome them at any given moment. So this is not a one-time opportunity that you had and you lose. So you can reach out to either of us at any given moment if you need more resources or information, and hope to see some of you at the second webinar as well. So have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
And see you soon.
Thank you.